This is Mike from MPCstuff.com and MachineStuff.com. We're going to show you now how to install the pad Corks on the Native Instruments machine. As you can see, we have one of our skins on this actual machine. It's missing the front plate, but I like it with the black there better. So we're going to show you now how to put the pad Corks for the Native Instruments machine. As most of you might know, our MPC series pad Corks have become very popular in making the MPCs a lot more sensitive with the pads, and we've now made them for the Native Instruments machines. This also works for the Machine Micro, and we'll also make a video on installing those as well. First step will be to remove all the knobs on the top of your Native Instruments machine. To remove them, you're just going to pull straight up. It's going to be kind of hard at first, but they'll pull straight up right off the machine. Alright, here are the Corks from MPCstuff and MachineStuff that we're going to install. As you can see, they look quite a bit different than the ones from the MPC. These ones are actually made out of nylon, which is a little bit thinner material because the cork is too thick to work on the Native Instruments machine. But it still gives the same effect, it's just a little thinner because when Native made the machine, they made a slightly less clearance. Also, you can see it's a completely different way and shape as the other ones. And still, just like the others, on the back side is a self-adhesive so you can put them on the pads. So now I'm going to show you how we're going to get the casing off so we can get to the bottom of the pads so we can install these onto our original pads. Now first you're going to want to put it on the back side, put it on something soft here, so you'll have your soft surface here. And once you have the soft surface there, it'll prohibit the encoders on the other side from hitting a hard surface. You can use a pillow. Here I've just used some soft mats that I had, and that'll work the best. You're also going to see on the back side, you're going to see the holes with the screws in them that we're going to need to take out. As you can see, all these screws here, with the exception of this one, is visible. You're going to have to poke a hole in this here so you'll come across this one hole. So what we're going to do is remove all the screws around. To get that bottom panel off. So let me do that now. So now that you've got the top panel off, you'll notice underneath a lot of small screws. The small screws will have actual little screw mark next to them. And those are the screws you're going to have to take out to get this panel off. After this, I'll count how many I've taken out. That way you know exactly. But you'll see them here, 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 and those are what's holding this panel on. That panel is what's holding us from enabling us to get the pads off on the underside. As you can see over here, we've already taken our panel off the back. Alright, now we have all our screws out, you can see here, and we got all the ones out that are labeled with the little screw. There's no other screws in the back, so once you've taken all the silver screws out, you're set. On the back side here, you'll notice a lot of times when you get this first off, you won't be able to get these up because these will actually be protruding, this one will be protruding through the hole a little bit on the back side, the little USB port. So what you got to do is just kind of push through there and kind of lift up from the back side, because this back side is where you're going to need to get it to lift up from. Once you've lifted up this board here, you'll see underneath we have all the pads, and underneath here you can see kind of the part of the sensor board. These are what we're going to be working with here, which are the way the pad sensors are set up is way different than on an MPC. These are very similar to the MV8000. This is the actual sensor sheet, which is going to give contact to the actual board. Here are the pads themselves, the back side of the pads, where you'll see they have a square shape, which is going to match the square shape that we're working with here. To make it easier, what we've decided is to actually install these onto the back side of this sheet that's going to sit in between the pads. So they're not going to actually go on the pads like they do on the MPCs, they're going to actually go on this sheet here. You'll notice on this sheet, you see the one side has the carbon traces, which is the side that's going to go towards the board. So we want to make sure to install our Corks on the back side of the flat, soft side, which is the side that's actually going to go against the rubber here. You'll see the way they've set it up is one corner has an edge, just like the pads have an edge here. And you'll notice that on the thick pads as well for the machine. Okay, so now I'm going to turn this over and get it on the side that we need to install the Corks on. And just for our sake to testing and show you guys how these work, I'm only going to install the Corks on the top half so that way we can check with the bottom half and I can show you the difference between how well the corks work now. Okay, now you can see we've installed the nylon corks onto the top half of the pads, and only the top half. Of course, when you install yours, you're going to install them all. We're just doing the top half so I can show you when we demonstrate the way the machine's working and how sensitive the pads are. Alright, so we've installed our corks, and now we're going to put this back on, and remember, this side goes up so it goes towards the sensors, and the cork side goes towards the pads. And you're going to see, again, remember that this little triangle that's cut out right here, that's going to be on the bottom side right here. You'll notice that also with these other ones, if those happen to fall out when you were taking anything out, this one right here has a top, that way you know which way it goes. Just make sure you put everything back in. Make sure they're all down. Sometimes these corners will come up a little bit, like you'll see right here. It'll be hard sometimes because when you're putting this back together, these the knobs will get pressed in a bit. So you need to make sure they're not pressed in as you're doing this. Get them back through the holes on the other side. Once they're on the holes on the other side, you'll be able to tell because you can feel through onto the other side. So make sure that's all done. And once you're all set, you're going to put your board back on top. What I would do is put the board back on, secure a few of the screws. What you're going to look for to put your screws back in is only put them in the holes that have the little screw mark next to them. If they don't have a screw mark next to them, don't put anything in there because those are actually the holes that hold on the actual casing when that comes back on. So again, make sure you only replace the ones with the little screw hole next to it and replace all of those. But what I would do is put a few in first to hold it down and then make sure that on the other side all your buttons are protruding through. So now we're going to put those screws back on and put the casing back together. Okay, now we've installed the pad corks. Just for demonstration purposes, I've only put them on these 4 pads here. All of the other pads, these ones don't have pad corks on them. I did that just so we can kind of show the sensitivity. As you can see, these ones, even with a low amount of pressure, they'll trigger. But these ones here, and then if you do like a pad swipe here, well, I'm swiping actually pretty hard, they won't go. If I do a swipe, but these ones that don't have it won't trigger. So as you can see, once you have the corks installed, they become more sensitive.